Okay, in algebraic expressions and models, you've got parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, and addition, subtraction, and you work from left to right on the multiplication, division, and the addition, subtraction. So be careful. Multiplication or division can be flip-flopped. Addition, subtraction. But again, you work from left to right. Do inside the parentheses. If there's nothing to do, move on the outside. These are called operations. You're going to hear that word operations, and I want you to be familiar with it and be careful because a lot of times you'll hear operations and you're not sure exactly what that's meaning. And what it means is that you're either adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. That is your operation. You could do a power or an exponent, and that's considered an operation also. Numerical expression consists of numbers, operations, and grouping symbols. Okay, so parentheses, brackets, etc. A word called the base is the number that has an exponent to it. The number at the bottom is called your base. The exponent is the number that it's raised to that power. The power contains a base that contains a base and an exponent. So in other words, 2 to the 4th power means the same as saying 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Means that I'm multiplying 2 4 times. Not 2 times 4, that's not what that means. It's meaning I'm multiplying the base to itself 4 times. A variable is a letter that is used to represent one or more variables, and a value of the variable is some number that either we find or is given to us that we replace the variable with. Algebraic expression is an expression involving variables. We call it sometimes a model. So you may hear write a model. That means write an expression, write an equation, whatever is given to you. Terms. In this example here, 2x to the 3rd minus 4x plus 1. Terms are separated by either addition or subtraction sign. So in this case, we have terms 2x to the 3rd, that is a term. Negative 4x is a term. And positive 1 is a term. So be careful. There's 3 terms in that example. Terms are separated by addition and subtraction signs. Coefficient is the number in front of the variable. So the coefficient to x cubed would be 2. And the coefficient to x would be negative 4 because it takes the sign in front of that number. Constant terms are numbers without variables, so the positive 1, because it takes the sign in front of it, would be a constant term. You hear the word equivalent, it means it's equal to the same amount. And identity is 2 equal expressions that are set equal to each other. So evaluate this algebraic expression when x equals 2. All you have to do is substitute in negative 2 in for x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it over here to the side. I've got negative 3. Instead of x, I'm replacing x with negative 2. Closing my parentheses, squaring it, minus 5 times x, but x is negative 2. Closing my parentheses and adding it to 7. So this is an expression. We're going to find out what it equals. Now, when you're writing algebraic expressions, you write them above and below each other as you work it out. So in order of operations, we do parentheses. Well, there's nothing to do inside of the parentheses. Then exponents. Well, we do have exponents on this one. Negative 2 squared. Negative 2 squared, any number to the 2nd power, 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, whatever even power, is always going to be positive. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. If you don't put parentheses around it in your calculator, it will give you the wrong answer. So I've got a 4 here. And that's being multiplied by negative 3. And I'm going to drop the parentheses, even though that means just multiplication. I'm going to put a little dot here. Makes it a little easier on me. Now I take this negative 5, because the sign goes with a number, times a negative 2, which makes a positive 10. Now why did I do that? I could go ahead and rewrite the whole thing, and we want to follow order of operations. And that's fine. Let's go ahead and do that. But remember, you can group them in different orders and you'd still get the same number. I was just grouping those together. But we'll keep with order of operations so not to confuse you. So from left to right, we have multiplication. -3 times 4, which is a -12. And now we have multiplication here, not a subtraction. We don't do that yet. We do -5 times -2, which gives me, a positive. Interesting. I would have got the wrong answer if I didn't follow order of operations. +7. Now addition and subtraction from left to right, whichever comes first. -12 plus 10 is a -2. I'm going to go ahead and add the 7, which gives me a +5. So the answer to that expression would be 5. And that would be below it, except that I ran out of room. Now go to the next part, and we write an expression and then evaluate the model. You have $50 and I'm buying some movies for $15 each. Okay, $50 is what you start off having as money. And then you are going to buy some movies for $15 each. We want to write an expression that shows how much money you have left after buying n movies, right? And evaluate the expression when n equals 3. So if I had $50, right, and each movie cost, well, cost means that I'm taking away 15. And the word each means it's $15 for every movie. And the number of movies that we're doing, in this case, is n. So we're multiplying by n. Well, there's my expression. Now I've got to substitute it in and see how much I had left over if I bought 3 movies. And you do 15 times 3. And 15 times 3 is 45. So you have 50 minus 45. That means that you'd have $5 left. And again, if you're dealing with money, you need to realize that if it was decimals, that you'd have that many decimals left over also. So in this one, we're going to simplify the expressions, and then we're going to evaluate and simplify again. And I'm just going to give myself just a little bit more room to work. I want to make sure that you can see my work clearly. So, on this first one, you need to distribute. You have 3 times the quantity, x plus 2. So 3 times everything inside the parentheses. 3 times x plus 3 times the positive 2. Then you move over to the second part. And you notice you have this minus sign here. This minus sign is like -1 times all of this. So that -1 right here needs to be distributed. And that's really tricky because if you have parentheses right beside a variable, or excuse me, beside a operation, you need to make sure that that operation goes to everything inside the parentheses. So then I have a minus 1 times 6, which is 6. And that negative sign goes to this. All right, +4. And a negative times a positive makes a negative. Okay, now when you simplify, you combine like terms, you get rid of all your parentheses. We've almost done that. So we have 3x's and -4x's, which leave you with -1x, which you just write -x. We're simplifying it. +6, 3 times 2 is 6, minus 6 gives you 0. So that would be simplifying my expression right there. The next one asks me to evaluate. So I have x, but we're going to replace x, right? So we're going to replace x with 2. So parentheses 2 plus 3, square, close my parentheses, and then square, over 3 times 4 minus 2. All right, so order of operations, parentheses. When we got parentheses, that's 5. And you're always going to treat the numerator or fraction like a parentheses. and then the denominator like parentheses. So we're going to do the denominator next. So we have multiplication, so that's 12 minus 2. All right, so we're going to simplify the numerator. 5 squared is 5 times 5, which is 25. And then the denominator, simplify it. 12 minus 2 is 10. Now, division does come before addition and subtraction, but again, you're treating the numerator like a parentheses and the denominator like a parentheses. Now you can do 25 divided by 10, which gives you 2.5. And you could simplify as a fraction. I don't really care. 5 over 2. Either one of those is a correct answer. So moving on to the next one. We want to simplify it all we can. No longer are we using these numbers up here. This is a different problem. So all I can do as of right now is distribute. So I have 5 times my n squared and 5 times my n. Now n squared and n are not like terms, so I did not combine them. Now I'm going to distribute this negative 2 with everything inside this parentheses. So minus 2 times n squared and a negative 2 times a negative 2n. Be careful with your signs. Make sure you always include, if it has a minus, as a negative. Simplify. I'm going to go ahead and just rewrite that one more time so that you can see what I am seeing. Being more experienced at it, it comes a little easier to me than it may to you. And you may have to watch this several times to think through it before you can see what I see at this stage. All right, a negative 2 times a negative 2n is a positive 4n. Now we're looking at like terms. Well, like terms, we have 5n squared and a negative 2n. And I changed color so you can see that all we're doing right now is simplifying 5 minus 2 because they're like terms. You just subtract and add the coefficients. 5 minus 2 is 3n squared. And 5n plus 4n, both positive, so add them. 9n. And that's as far as you can go with that problem. These are not like terms, so you cannot combine anymore. Okay, that is it for this problem.